Welcome to our latest edition of True Race on the Red Card podcast and celebrating our 25th anniversary, 25 for 25. I'm delighted to be joined this time by Habib Rahman, former mayor of Newcastle City Council, and full disclosure, one of my favorite people on the planet.
This is 25 for 25, a Show Racism the Red Card podcast. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Habib, welcome.
Thank you, Shaka. Lovely to be here. And isn't it wonderful to celebrate 25? We're actually coming 26 years now, isn't it? 26 years of show race in the red card. Wow, what a journey it has been. I look forward to this conversation with my favorite, Shaka, the tune legend that is, you're a true inspiration, a real trailblazer here, in not just the northeast of England, but in the UK for everything fantastic that you've been doing, and certainly the legacy of this campaign. So, looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Habib. Flattery will get you everywhere. That's absolutely perfect. I, again, just putting all our cards out on the table. Full disclosure, you as mayor awarded me Freedom of the City in May of this year. A great honor for me, and I'm delighted that you were the mayor to bestow that on me. Let me ask about your mayorship specifically. 800 years Newcastle has been anointing mayors. You, during the course of 2021, 2022, became the first Asian, first Muslim, first mayor of color in the city's history. Did you feel the weight of that moment of who you are and all that you represented?
Absolutely. Let me start by correcting you. So the full title was Lord Mayor. There's Lord before the Mayor. So there's another weight of,
excuse me.
So no, it has. I don't think the diverse community, or certainly the citizens of Newcastle or the Northeast, really realize the pressure that any person of color would be having coming into breaking the age-old, century-old history.
That legacy you left will serve and inspire generations to come, and in a way that just a generation ago, I don't think people in Newcastle had someone to look up to in a similar way. And I've been back to Newcastle now a couple of times this calendar year for the first time in quite a few years. And I recognize the change in the city, so much about the diversity of the city, of our minority communities and how integrated into the city, and they have become. That's easy for me to spot coming in from the outside, as I have, as someone who has lived within that community, who has served within the community and the city. How has that changed? How have you seen and received that change over the last 40 years?
It's very visible, and you've just touched based on what you've seen every now and then. You've been able to come. I'll use my kids as an example. So my kids see themselves as British. And, as citizen of this country, they're Geordie, very rightly so. They shouldn't have to see themselves as Bangladeshi or Muslim, then British and Geordie. They see themselves as Geordie Brits. And they have their friend circle, your next door neighbor, your schoolmates, the whole integration, the way they are able to integrate with European, English, people of all walks of life. And to them, there is no difference. They don't see any difference other than, oh, your hairstyle is this, my hairstyle is that, or your certain interests. And that, I think, has been possible because of some of the works of the diverse community some 20, 30 years ago. And it is possibly one of the achievement. We are where we are because of the success of Show Racing the Red Card, as an example. We are where we are because of some of the work that the likes of Northeast of England African Community Association, some of those members that we've met, they have done to challenge inequalities and racism and to foster community cohesion and real social integration. Some of the work that the South Asian community have been doing for the past 30, 40 years ago. That's the fruit of the success. That's the fruit of the struggle that we had 20, 30, 40 years ago. Now, my memories of 30 years ago weren't pleasant, I'm afraid.
I've met your sons, and I recognize how they look up to you, and in recognition of who you are and your standing in the city. You tell a different story, though. You lost your father at a very young age. Do you mind telling your story, your dad's story?
Yeah, I mean, it's a story that even I didn't know. I didn't know. There's people who or young people who are brought up by a single parent. They will know how it feels. Growing up born and bred in Bangladesh, growing up in a rural village, all of a sudden you emigrate here in Britain. My mom, and I always say this, and I'll never stop saying this. My mom is the best mom in the world, and she is my true inspiration and role model. I've never. It sounds so bizarre and funny. I've never felt I didn't have a dad, and that's how good mom was playing both mom and dad. That I've never questioned mom to say, "Oh, by the way, where's my dad? And don't I have a dad?" kind of thing. Until in my late teenage years, early adulthood, when there was a incident in the West End where a Muslim man going to on his way to going to mosque in 1992, to be precise, going to his mosque, he was set up on by a group of white youth and adult who literally punched and kicked him to death, and that was a horrible. It was a horrible situation. It was so tough. The very next day, I was an active anti-racist campaigner, human rights activist. When I became aware of this, my instant reaction was, you know what, we need to challenge this. So I was full on trying to lead a demonstration to make sure justice is had. So I was busy organizing a rally to protest against the police brutality, making sure justice is had and those killers receive the sentence that they should be. And Mom, after a week, she sat me down. You could imagine I'm meeting police officers, I'm meeting council officers, etc., full on. She sat me down, and that's the first time she broke the news. And the news was my dad, who came to the UK during the labour market to fulfil the labour shortage. He was working in the factories, based in London. One day he received a call from my uncle, who was based here in Newcastle. So he invited my dad to come to Newcastle. Both the brothers were going to establish a business. And my dad gave in to his brother's call and request, and he decided to move over to Newcastle, working at his restaurant. He only lasted 10 days here in Newcastle. 10 days working in his restaurant. One night, a customer comes to the restaurant, initially purchasing the food, not satisfied. The customer comes back complaining about the food. He's there to deal with the complaint, only for the customer to return back with a knife, armed with a knife. And that incident was walking in the restaurant and stabbed my dad. It only took one stab, straight to the heart. My dad killed at his restaurant. It couldn't last 10 days.
Goodness me.
No one could imagine how I would feel at that moment when you're told by your mom, oh, by the way, this is what happened to your dad. This is how you lost your dad. And after all the racial, not just verbal, physical assault and abuse that you have endured for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you find out how you lost your dad. It was difficult. It was difficult to take, and it's difficult to even talk about it. Quite honestly, it's tough, and because of the positive support that I had. I think I did in one interview say this to someone, and I don't mind saying this again. If I didn't have the right sort of support at that moment, then reflecting on, could I have ended up in the wrong path? And the simple answer is, I've got to be honest with myself, and the simple answer is yes, I could have. But I was blessed to have fantastic support from people that I look up to. My youth worker of those days, the first thing I did was cry my eyes out when Mom told me, after yet another uncle has been murdered, that, oh, by the way, this is what happened to your dad. I remember crying and reaching out to someone, and this is where my guardian angel, my brother, my youth worker, Amrit Crawford, came in, and he gave you the motivation, the inspiration. And the inspiration was, you know what, we need to fight this. You need to fight injustice, to fight racism. And the best way to fight is using the pen and the action, not the fist. If you were to use the fist, then you're going to lose yourself. And the rest, one thing at a time just happened.
And let me ask this, Habib. You spoke about your mother and the outsized role she played as a single parent in your life, and how you never ever felt as though you were lacking in any way as she raised you as a single parent. You came to know your father's story later on in your life as a young man. You told us how that impacted you. As you kind of reflect on your own role in your community, as you reflect on your father and his story in that same community, does telling his story, does making him proud factor into who you are and how you go about uplifting those stories and those voices in the South Asian community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the brutal reality is a lesson for everyone in Britain to learn, because those history, those brutality that everyone learns of, it is a step moving in the right direction to ensure such brutality does not take place. And when people find out about me, my upbringing, positive or negative, whichever way one looks at it, and the factor, a huge gap in my life was I didn't have a father in my house who would be there to nurture you, to guide you, to inspire you, sometimes to tell you off. Is a inspiration or a motivation to a lot of the single, not just moms, but single dads, those individual single parents. And I suppose from the Black and South Asian communities, when they hear my story, and I know once somebody referenced a tragic story, and I corrected them. Actually, no, it's not a tragic story. It's a brutal story. It's a case of a murder. So we've got to get the terminology right and the facts right. It's a brutality that took place, and the way my dad was taken away is a lesson for us to move on. And I get so much encouragement from the Black community. Members of the community come up to me and say, you know what, big up to your mum, the way she has raised you, and well done you for choosing the right path to continue to fight the fight. And their words is, your dad will be so damn proud of you. And whenever they say that, I hear those words again and again and again. And you know what? Each time somebody says, your dad will be so proud of you, I just can't help it. I just look up to heavens and reach out. And in that moment, I'm reaching out and saying to Dad, I hope you're proud of me. But at the same time, what I also said to Dad is, don't worry about us. We are safer now. You weren't safe, but we are a lot safer. So yeah, it's difficult to talk through those, but it does lead on to inspire and motivate a different set, and ultimately every day I feel a sense of personal satisfaction every day when everything that I go on to achieve or everything that I will go on to challenge, there's a sense of personal satisfaction that I'm a better person. And if I'm a better person, then I suppose both of us are dads. We'll understand this. If our children become good in everything that they do, then natural reaction of dads and moms are, oh, well done, son, or well done, daughter. I'm so proud of my. So I just keep on hoping that Dad looks down on me and says, I'm proud of you, boy.
You've made my goosebumps raise, Habib. It really has. One of the most striking things about that story, about your story, about the story of so many minority communities, is these acts of brutality happen far too often. They're underreported. And even when they are reported, when you're not from within those communities, you view them as with a certain fifth or sixth degree of separation, that it's that far removed. But when you're from within those communities, it is no more than a degree or two, that these are more than just personally impactful. These are stories of brutality to a community that we have to come together to endure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we will come together. And I think society is coming together now. And the challenge still remains where it is. And the brutality, the way my dad was taken away, that in itself was a brutality. But it's what happened after that. The murderer was only sentenced to 7 years of manslaughter. You know what? That's a real brutality of injustice of the so-called justice system that's in place. And those are the real fights to make sure institutions are fair and have a balanced approach to fight injustice, and in this case, act of I've said in one or two times that was an act of terrorism against my dad by one individual. So those are fights, real fights that we need to continue fighting. And some of us, like you and me, we will continue to fight on racism and injustice and inequalities. That's positively the right way, that is. Challenge the system.
To your point, I think one of the most kind of basic reactions is to lash out and use the fist, as you say, but it also shows the importance of that support network, of that community of I have met your mom, I've met your wife, I understand the roles and the valuable roles that they've played in your life. Is it because of their intervention, their support, that you saw involvement in politics, your own involvement in politics, as being the perfect response to that trauma, not just a personal trauma, not just a family trauma, but a trauma of your community?
Yeah. I think I realized at a younger age, the fight that some of us unfortunately have to fight, injustice, inequality, and racism, sometime you have, in order to make those real changes, then the changes can only be had from top on, and the power that there is, if the attitude comes from top onwards, top down, looking down. And I realized quite quick that to make sure inequalities and injustice is challenged, to have fairness and equality in every aspect of life, then you've got to be in certain position of power to make sure on a strategic level the support is there and the direction is there. I knew what my path was, and that path was to ensure to be in a position where I could influence, position and reshape things. And look where it's brought me. I've just stepped down from sitting on the highest seat in Newcastle. I have had those success going forward. Fantastic changes, but as you and I know, there is still more to do, more to be done in my own town. There is still a huge gap of inequality in terms of fair representation of paying people in certain positions, in certain powers, in certain posts. There's a huge inequality. And the only way to change that will be legislation needs to be changed. Strategic views and opinions will need to change, and the whole focus and intention need to be there to ensure we have equality in every aspect. So that's the next real hope, really.
Habib, I recognize those challenges that the Northeast still faces. I also recognize that you've never shirked a challenge. So what's next for you?
Ooh, that's a real good question. I think we're simple. Keep on fighting on. And when I say fight on, and I really mean that, unfortunately, that BAME communities still have a fight. And the fight is Britain still institutions, organization, there is a huge barrier that is preventing people of color being able to continuously prosper, and there's a huge imbalance, and for us as a society to ensure those imbalances are corrected. And the only way that's going to happen is if those of us who have been, and the organizations who have continuously tried to challenge those barriers, we continue to do that. Otherwise, my sons and daughters, my nieces and nephews, our sons and daughters will be prevented, and they won't be able to succeed in the ways that anyone else should. And those are some of our challenges. On a very personal level, where do I go from here? Simple. I just continue. The greatest thing, the most fulfilling thing for me is being able to bring a little bit of change and being able to inspire and motivate people. I'm happy with that. And if I can just continuously inspire the Black and minority ethnic community, that's fantastic. But on the same time, what I really want to do is I want to inspire our institutions, our organization, and the power that there is for them to realize actually we still have problem, deep-rooted institutional barriers and problem that prevents fairness, equality, and justice for us all. And that's the fight I want to continue to fight on. Along the way, if something comes up, hey, something fantastic comes up, yeah, I might look at that and see where we go.
Newcastle might be looking for a new manager in the next couple of years. Habib, don't shut your book on that just yet.
Yeah. I'll keep an eye on that.
Anyhow is a good friend of mine, and I'm sure you join me in wishing him all the luck. Habib, just in closing, it's South Asian Heritage Month. As a South Asian man, son, husband, father, as a pillar of the South Asian community, what do you feel is the greatest significance of this month to the South Asian, to those of us within the South Asian community? And what do you think is the greatest lesson for those of us who are not in the South Asian community, but want to support all that you do, the roles that you play in in today's world?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's the month. Well, I should say none of us, no community should need a single day of the year or a month in the year to talk about the legacy of the achievement. The same goes with Black History Month. It should be that we should be able to celebrate and recognize everything great the communities contribute. But what it presents is in that month for us to be proud of who we are. I am damn proud of my heritage, my roots. I'm a proud Bengali. I'm a proud Muslim. I'm a proud South Asian. So that's my celebration. And then what it presents us is to paint a picture here in Britain to say, hey, look, South Asian individuals and communities have been contributing to shape Britain to what it is now. Let's recognize that. So everything fantastic about that. You know what? Britain is on the verge to possibly have its prime minister who could be a person of South Asian heritage. And that, put in one perspective, that's how much the South Asian community have moved on and achieved going forward. So my message to every individual of South Asian heritage is just be proud of who you are, because I'm damn proud of my roots, and within that, let us continue to work to make our communities, our societies, our terraces a better place for all of us. We are part of the British fabric, and it's work collectively to challenge everything that needs to be challenged and to celebrate everything that needs to be celebrated. And the work continues.
Habib, I've known you for some time through your work in this city. I've got to know you even better over the last couple of years. And though I may be biased, I say without hesitation, you are an example to your community. You are an example to me. Thank you very much for all that you have been. Thank you very much for all that you will be. Britain and the world are a better place. Newcastle is a better city for your efforts. Thank you so much.